I have to figure out my own path. There's people that, I report to that ultimately can make decisions at the end of the day, but they're very busy. So it's up to me sometimes making those hard decisions.
What are the differences you feel working at a startup versus perhaps a larger corporation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I feel like it's a common question and a lot of people have different answers to it. Having, worked now at this startup for close to 3 years in various roles, the biggest thing at a startup is that you're wearing all sorts of hats. And I also think that your responsibilities are more highly elevated than they are at a big company. It takes longer at a big company to get that same set of responsibilities. So there's pros and cons to that. At a startup, I felt I have to figure out my own path. There's people that, I report to that ultimately can make decisions at the end of the day, but they're very busy. So it's up to me sometimes making those hard decisions. How do I handle this customer complaint? How do I prioritize what tasks we're going to prioritize as a development team next? All sorts of things that I think that oftentimes at a bigger company, you kind of see a structure where it's very clear cut what task people are doing and kind of who is responsible for what. I think at a startup, one of the things that I've noticed is that the boundaries are definitely not clear cut. Everyone's kind of reaching into different areas. It's great and it's also really challenging. It's great because it's like really motivating and exciting to be like to have such a big amount of control over like product direction, about how successful something goes, how what types of new features you can work on. It's really exciting in that realm, but at the same time, I sometimes feel like I'm running around. I'm spread thin in a lot of areas, and as a result, I'm not really accomplishing anything major. Like I feel like I'm not accomplishing major things in any of the areas because I'm like spread thin. And I think sometimes at a bigger organization, and honestly, my experience at big companies is limited. So I don't want to like act like I am the knower of all things big company, but I think you get a little bit more of an opportunity to really dive into one area and grow within that realm, see how a structure that like can kind of optimize different people's roles, and kind of you have that happening. So I rambled a little bit there, but I guess the gist of it is startup, a lot of responsibilities, exciting, but also challenging. Big company, I feel like more of a sometimes niche area, but you really get to grow in that area and you kind of have a little bit more defined what you should do now. Like it's a little bit more clear cut.
I think you nailed it. I can't say I've truly worked at a big company. I interned at a Fortune 100 company for 3 months. I don't know if that gives me authority to say what it's like, but from my experience as well, I found that your expectations in a large company are generally clearer, but the amount of impact that you feel you can have on the organization is a lot lower. And it's almost always a trade-off between those things. So in a startup, you'll generally have high expectations, but they're not as clear and they're subject to change. But the amount that you can impact either the company's bottom line or a product or any of those things is so much higher. And I personally enjoy being able to have a touch on something. I like being able to see the fruits of my labor. I do not get motivated from anything outside of that. That's probably why I've chosen the career path that I have. But there's nothing wrong with either of the approaches. It just is a match with what you personally enjoy. If you really like security and knowing what you're expected to do, big company definitely for you. And there's really good data science to be done. Or if you're really focused on a very, very specific area, same thing. If you want to, in theory, grow with a company more, if you want to leave a really true imprint on an organization, a smaller one or a startup is probably a little bit of a better bet.